My name is Tess Rada. My 8-year-old daughter Lila is a 3rd grader at Annunciation Catholic School. I've spoken a lot publicly about that day, about the call I got from Lila's dad, who was outside the church to hear the shots, the horror of rushing to the school, and the faces of parents and children desperately looking for each other in the gym, lots of kids covered in blood. I've spoken a lot about the horror of finding out that 2 children were killed, one of them Lila's classmate, and the emotional weight that almost crushed us as we attended their funerals. Something I haven't shared too much about is the aftermath, because it is much less quantifiable. After the shooting, my PTSD was so severe that I lost my job. Because work was where I got the call about the shooting, stepping through the doors to my office made me shake uncontrollably and hyperventilate. My daughter goes to therapy weekly, but to this day she has been unable to talk about August 27th. My question for everyone is this: how are children who experience mass shootings supposed to lead lives productive to society when they fall to the ground and sob when they hear an unexpected noise? How are they supposed to grow up and bring more children into the world when they know that those children could be slaughtered anywhere they go, even at school or in church? Lastly, something that has become very, very important to me, and especially in the wake of the Tumbler Ridge massacre in Canada, where 6 children and 3 adults were killed in school, is that our children are listening. And when we attribute mass violence to one marginalized community, we use that community as a scapegoat to ignore the real problem. We unfairly endanger people that identify with that community. Being part of the LGBTQ+ community is not a mental health issue. Guns, thank you. Guns remain the problem. It may be true that a gun cannot pull its own trigger, but it is equally true that a person cannot pull a trigger without a gun. Our children are listening as we stand and debate the political intricacies that are allowing guns to have more political standing than them. They're listening to the silence that lawmakers give when more children are slaughtered at school. I stand with the medical community that has done so much to help us at Annunciation in demanding change from our government. This is simply unsustainable. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak at this wonderful event. My name is Brock Safe. I'm the proud father of 2 Annunciation Catholic School students, Estella in 8th grade and Astoria in 5th grade. On the morning of the shooting, I was halfway across the country, traveling for work and just heading into a meeting when I received a frantic phone call from my wife at 8:37 Minnesota time. A call every parent in the U.S. unfortunately knows is a possibility, but never thinks they'll get. "There's a shooter at school," she yelled, but I could barely understand through the utter terror in her voice. After she hung up to rush to school, I sat there for a few seconds, literally shell-shocked. Staring at a blank wall, my mind raced. I was trying to make sense of this nightmarish scenario that made no sense. At the time, I didn't know where the shooting took place on school property. But in those few seconds, I realized it was a Wednesday morning. And every Wednesday is an all-school mass. And that is when I went from shocked to utterly horrified. I called the first parents I could think of at the moment to try to get more details, but I found out quickly I was breaking the devastating news to everyone that I called. I then called my daughter's prior teacher, who I found out later was also in the church. Thankfully, she picked up on the first ring. What she told me next will be embedded in my brain until the day I die. With sheer chaos in the background, she yelled through the phone, "Brock, I have eyes on Estella. Your baby is okay." I immediately fell to my knees with tears of relief, but that moment was short-lived when I then asked about my other daughter, Astoria. She said, "I don't see Astoria, but when I do, I will let you know right away." At that point, I feared the worst case scenario for my daughter and literally sprinted out of the office, desperate to catch the next flight home. One can only imagine the level of torture and agony it was to be so far away and truly not knowing whether your child was dead or alive from a school shooting. It was truly an impossible situation I would not wish upon my worst enemy. What I found out later was both of my daughters were in the church that day. Thankfully, my 8th grader Estella was unhurt physically, but friends on either side of her were shot directly, including one of her best friends shot in the head. Thankfully, she survived, though she had to undergo surgery which required opening up part of her skull to relieve swelling in her brain from the gunshot wounds. As for my 5th grader Astoria, it's a miracle upon miracles she is still with us today. She was seated right next to the window in which the coward shot through first. In just the first 10 seconds of the massacre, this selfish bastard carelessly shot dozens of military-grade AR-15 bullets through the window. Astoria was grazed by a bullet in the forehead this way, meaning she didn't even have enough time to react to even turn her head. They were sitting ducks. While a large bullet fragment embedded into the left side of her neck. In addition to this, multiple bullet fragments lodged into her head. If that man had used something other than a semi-automatic gun that day, a pistol or even a shotgun, the amount of carnage he could have inflicted would have been significantly limited. But he didn't. He used a killing machine designed for one singular purpose: to inflict maximum carnage in the shortest amount of time. Astoria was next to Harper in the church that day, her dear friend. She recalls their conversation before Mass began, making small talk to their younger buddies, asking them what their favorite color was. Moments later, Harper was gone. This heartbreaking tragedy is something Astoria struggles to understand and will live with until the day she dies. Astoria, along with so many other Annunciation students, have been diagnosed with severe PTSD. And they are left to cope with horrific images, unspeakable images that only the most seasoned combat veterans may experience on the battlefield. And they were literally praying during Mass in a school church when this happened. Can you believe that? They were all so innocent, and their innocence was taken that day. What our children and teachers endured is truly unimaginable. A devastating consequence of a nation that continues to prioritize their love of guns over the safety and lives of our children. I'm here today, along with Tess, to do everything we can to ensure what happened on August 27th does not get erased. It must stand for something. This must serve as a catalyst for meaningful change. It's our responsibility to break the cycle and ensure that it does not continue to repeat, as it has for too damn long. We cannot continue to live in a society where a deeply troubled individual can walk into a gun store and buy assault-style weapons. These machines have no rightful place outside of a war zone. Yet this monster was able to legally acquire an AR-15, which he then used to unleash 119 rounds in just 66 seconds, tearing through a church filled with terrified children and staff. I personally don't own guns, but that does not mean I'm anti-gun. I completely understand the want for it for protection and for hunting. What I don't understand is why high-capacity semi-automatic rifles and extended magazines continue to be legal and easily accessible to any Yahoo with a pulse. We urgently need stronger restrictions and sensible reform to our gun laws to ban these type of weapons. We need to make it as hard as humanly possible for these type of monsters to hurt our kids. Nothing will bring back Harper and Fletcher, our sweet children who were taken from us, 10 and 8 years old, praying in a church. And we cannot undo the heartbreak and tragedy and tragedy that unfolded at Annunciation on that devastating day. However, we have the solemn responsibility and the moral obligation to fight for children across America to ensure that no other child faces this same fate. We cannot and we must not fail them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Brock. Next, we are going to be hearing from Thea Williams, Violence Intervention Specialist and Community Educator.